discussing holiday foods and balancing the immune system, which is obviously in the middle of a pandemic. The immune system is a pretty hot topic, so it should be really fun to discuss this. I'm so excited to introduce Tricia Petzold to this panel because Tricia is a rock star in more ways than we have to get through today. Just an amazing woman, an amazing doctor. She's a medical doctor. We actually trained together in family practice, but Tricia and I have been friends for, I think, over 30 years, going back to her undergraduate days. She is a professor at the University of Utah, where she lectures on these topics, so it's been a real treat. She is an integral and functional medicine doctor at her own clinic at Pinnacle Health in Salt Lake City, where she can treat such a variety of different things in unique ways. I'll let her talk about that. And she's a doctor at Snowbird. Tricia is, she's been an ER doc. We did a family practice residency together, all around super athlete and healthy person, and just a joy to be with. So welcome, Tricia Petzold.
Thanks, John. That was a very generous intro. I don't know if
you can probably do it better than I can.
Is my screen showing up?
Let me stop sharing mine, and now you can share yours.
I don't need to see my screen. I didn't know if my face was showing up on the webinar.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Okay. So either way, thank you. So thank you very much, John. I am thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be part of Eats Park City. I'm just a wonderful what you're doing up there, and I'm happy to be on this talk with John. And I will echo that John and I have done a lot of things together, including going through residency together. And so I really appreciate those kind words you gave me. Thanks, John.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to jump into the topic here, food and the immune system, especially here at the holidays, when it's so easy to think, well, in a normal year, this is a time to, kind of there's stress involved with the holidays, which can affect your immune system. We're dealing with obviously issues facing viruses, but also the foods we eat, the lack of sleep we get, the stress, all things that affect immune system. And I don't know if Tricia, if you're somebody who is a collegiate athlete, still an amazing athlete. You've always taken care of yourself. And is there a reason like you got into health? And I know you eat so well and you're somebody who's always taken great care of yourself.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I really think habits are health. I think things that we do repeatedly, even if they're small little things over time, really build up to health more than one power food or one power pill or one power intervention. And so knowing that concept I observe as being lost in our society over my lifetime. I just really started focusing more and more on that aspect of what lifestyle factors do we have control over that can really impact and change health outcome. And so that sort of transitioned me from more emergency acute care medicine, which is fabulous, to a really deep dive into what habits actually can reverse disease, treat disease, and prevent disease.
Oh, I love that. That's you said that habits are health. I mean, we always, we use that moniker, like food as medicine, but habits is health. I've got this book I've really been in love with called Atomic Habits. It's sitting on my desk, and it's all about that. That just it's not, not atomic, like boom, huge, but micro. It's the little things that we make our habits every day that make us who we are. If we say, okay, this is who I want to be, let's be a better person. The little choices we make every day are what really change us. That's where we have the ability to change who we are, to make positive changes, in our health, in our attitudes, in what we eat. I think I love that. Just, the habits as our health, and just making those little changes can make all the difference.
Yeah, I think understanding that is a power. We think of powers as big, huge things, but that's a super powerful concept.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, maybe one of the places to start, because I know the topic is immune system, food, over the holidays, especially. We're going to share some great recipes. I've got some supplements I'd like to show what I use or other ones I recommend, some books. I know Tricia has some recipes, but maybe we should open up. And Tricia, if you're comfortable talking a little bit about the immune system in general, like, how it functions right now. I think there's a lot of questions during this pandemic, or why are some people getting sick? There's not all the answers to it, but we do know certainly people who are healthier to begin with seem to do better and can protect themselves, hopefully, from getting sick in the first place. And if you do get sick, certainly recovering, faster or better. And obviously that's we could have an entire month of lectures on the immune system. It's a pretty weighty topic, but maybe do you want to give an overview and I can jump in, or?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I think that's a great place to start. I say the immune system has sort of a 3-layer part to it. There's a barrier or mucosal layer, or mucosal immune system. There's the innate immune system, and there is the adaptive immune system. So let me explain a little bit about them. The mucosal immune system is a barrier. It's what is lining our nose, our airway, our lungs, our GI system, and it really acts as a block to having a virus come and land and be able to establish itself on a human cell. And if and when, things that are one of the players of the mucosal immune system is secretory IgA. And the next layer, if and when that barrier gets breached, our innate immune system kicks in, and that is a part of our immune system that works 24/7 as sort of the survey camera, if you will, constantly looking around the body to say, is there anything wrong? Is there any invader in here? And when it sees something that's not us, not self, it attacks, and it attacks with these inflammatory molecules that then can hopefully ward off and kill the virus. Unfortunately, they're not specific to that virus, and if it goes out of whack a little bit, or even if it doesn't, it can kill things around the virus. So there's what we call collateral damage, and that, but in the efforts to not let the virus take over. And about a week into this, the body's quickly working with the adaptive immune system. B cells, C cells are key figures in this one, and we produce antibodies, and we specifically target parts of the virus, proteins on the virus that would help us eliminate viruses specifically. And that's really the level of the immune system where we hear about the studies going on trying to get us an immunization, is they're looking at the adaptive immune system and really trying to target the virus versus what you might also, some of the listeners may have also heard of this cytokine storm, in that when someone has an overreaction to the virus and has damage to their lung tissues, requiring oxygen, sometimes intubation, this concept of ARDS, the body overreacts or reacts robustly to this virus and then starts attacking itself to an extent. And that's when you get fluid in the lungs and you end up in the ICU. So sort of the balance of each of those levels of the immune system is important.
So you've kind of got the mucosal system as the first barrier. If that's healthy, that can protect you from different infections, viruses, bacteria getting through. So you need that healthy mucosal system in your gut and everywhere there's mucosal, your skin, that can let things through. If those are broken through, or your respiratory system, we can talk about the foods that protect each of those or disrupt them. If those are broken and things get into your system, inside your body, it's the innate system that then fights it, attacks it. And then more the adaptive is kind of that long-term protective system that learns and grows and develops. It's a pretty sophisticated system. Is that
excellent summary. Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think the
simple brain talking. Okay, hold on.
Concept of where does food fit in? I mean, I think you alluded to the fact that it starts right at the barrier mucosal immune system. Is what we eat really impacts how robust and how strong of a barrier we have just in our everyday life. There's certain foods we can eat, like fibrous vegetables, that feed certain bacteria and produce all kinds of, and we'll get a chance to talk about the microbiome later, but to build up that barrier with the microbiome and the mucosal layer in the gut, and then when you don't feed the gut, if you don't feed yourself and your bacteria in your GI system fibrous vegetables, then these bacteria that actually love like to eat the mucosal layer, thrive. And that actually thins the barrier of that aspect of the immune system. So it really it's a really impacting part of the immune system through food.
Food in the gut, yeah, specifically. I mean, so I keep wanting to jump into the foods. Go, okay, what food for this? What food for that? But I think I know it's a little bit scientific, but understanding it at first is so important. So maybe this is a good time to just talk a little bit more about the microbiome. It's such a hot topic. We all hear about it. We all hear we need a balanced microbiome. We need a balanced gut. We can get the leaky gut we talked about a little bit in the thyroid talk. And certainly, I think people have become aware of different disruptors like, let's say, processed food, sugars, white flours, some of the wheat, things we can become sensitive to. You're getting really into the balance, the importance of balance, because I think, especially over the holidays, we're not all going to have perfect diets. We want to eat, we want to balance our things out. How do you teach that, or what do you teach people in terms of balancing the gut?
I think about balance. So we have a whole ecosystem in our GI system, as you know, and there are good bacteria and there are bad bacteria. And the ideal is to have the good bacteria far outweigh the bad bacteria. And so eubiosis is a way of saying we have a good ecosystem that has a good balance of different types of bacteria that will digest different types of foods and produce different types of metabolites. Like short chain fatty acids is a great one that then fuels the GI system, as well as is very anti-inflammatory and has benefits throughout the whole body. Then there's pathological bacteria that, if given the chance, could get to a bigger amount and cause problems and cause dysbiosis. So dysbiosis is actually an imbalance, which is either not enough good bacteria or too much of a pathological bad bacteria. And I think of it sort of in that way. And so it leads to, it's sort of like crowding out the bad guys, if you will. And if you're a little weak on the good bacteria, you give the opportunity, an opportunity to grow to the bad guys. And I think of it in terms of, if you can diversify your food, I mean, the best way to diversify and balance your gut bacteria is to diversify your food. So not only does in plant foods have the most optimal way of feeding the gut bacteria, because they're full of fibers and they're full of different nutrients and phytochemicals, which are beneficial chemicals of the foods, and vitamins. But they also, each fruit, each vegetable has a different composition of fiber. So they're actually feeding the microbiome in a slightly different way, helping diversify it.
That's a big pearl right there. Like diverse diet, lots of different colorful, different vegetables. You want to mix them up. If you get in that routine of having the same one all the time, that can start to unbalance you. Like if you only worked one muscle group in the gym, like you said, you need balance everything out. Maybe so that's always been a big pearl to me, is eat lots of different types of vegetables, different colored vegetables, kind of eat the rainbow.
I love that.
Another short message I try to remember. Not that I always do it, but we try.
That's something I teach to kids, is eat a rainbow.
There you go. It's so easy to remember. Then you say, yeah, it's got some different colors in there. I mean, since we're in the gut, since we're in that membranous first layer of the immune system, any absolute, like, hey, foods you should try to, avoid, don't have as much, we know we're facing the holidays, to limit, other ones that are great besides the rainbow, the vegetables, anything else that I know short chain fatty acids, we can supplement those. There are different foods that might be high in that, and the fibers. Any pearls you have, Tricia, for, which ones are, really gut health?
Yeah, I like to, it varies person to person and what certain vegetables they tolerate. But yeah, like you said, I love eat the rainbow every day, or I like to say that and try to do it myself. Besides the vegetables, I would say high omega-3 fatty acids. So very anti-inflammatory. So if you're not a
Healthy oils. Good oils.
what's that? If you're, olive
The
oil,
good healthy oils, avoiding
avocado has, if you're not a vegetarian, salmon, cold water fish is a great one for omega-3s. And I think, like you said, trying to minimize processed grains, and sweets and sugars, and alcohol is also a little bit rough on the microbiome. So kind of moderating that.
You can always find good evidence that there's healthy things in red wine. Red wine is healthy. I remember the attending Merle Sandy, Sandy's microbiology book, asking patients, have you had a glass of red wine every day? It's protective for your heart. But I think my big take homes when people ask me about that is always in balance. Anything out of balance is not healthy. So we can always find evidence that says, oh, it's great, drink lots of coffee, drink lots of alcohol. But if you're having it every day, it can definitely cause issues with the immune system. It can break down the mucosal barrier, causing inflammation in the gut. So we're not saying don't do it, but it's good to be in balance is a healthy way to think of it.
Yeah, and I think everyone's different. The resveratrol in red wine is a great polyphenol that's fabulous for our health, right? That's fantastic. And there's certain hops in beers, but if you have a gluten sensitivity, or you're tending to have more not a robust barrier, then gluten can be tough. And so, yeah, I guess moderation is a good word going into the holidays.
We all have our moments. And when you mentioned omega-3, one food that a lot of people tell me, oh, I eat lots of tofu, I get lots of, soy certainly had a moment where, it was like this healthy thing. It was the healthy alternative, has protein, but it's also high in omega-6, I think, which can be inflammatory. So same thing, kind of like alcohol. Balance, limit it, moderate it. It's not something you want to be having all the time, thinking this is a super healthy food. Too much of it can affect estrogen levels. It's estrogenic, but also can be a little bit inflammatory. So got to be careful on some of the foods. Again, I think moderation is another great pearl here.
Yeah, John, that's a good point. That foods that are superfoods. Everyone's always looking for, like, maybe if I eat this, I can do whatever I want over the holidays or whatever. Right. And I think superfoods are great. I think of cauliflower and broccoli and those cruciferous vegetables as fairly superfoods, because they have sulforaphane, and it's a detoxifier, and it's antioxidant, and does all these great things. But if you were to say
viruses, fights cancer.
Yeah, right.
Love those.
Right, exactly. And I say eat them, but if I wouldn't eat just one, like you were saying, just one of them, because each, not only do we get different things from the different vegetables or different foods, but everything that has a capability of rotting actually has a microbiome on it. So you're actually inoculating your own microbiome as we eat. So again, I'm going back to variety. So if you keep eating variety, you can maybe get away with it.
And let's
taking a few treats for the holidays.
Oh, I think John is.
We like treats. We got some alternative treats with avocados, but we'll go into that. The cruciferous vegetables, we all hear them. I mean, you mentioned cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, broccoli. What else are you?
Arugula, that's a good one.
My favorite ones to think of. Which one?
Arugula is actually related as well. And
yes, rocket, love it. Peppery bite to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many good benefits in the cruciferous. I know we're still in the mucosal system, and lots of different things that work there. We're jumping into some of the antioxidant foods, which are going to work more internally. I was jumping back for a second from the gut, which I know we can keep talking about. But because of the time, here we are, at this time of year, it's so common to get respiratory infections. And so the mucosal system in the lung, something I've always thought impressive was, vitamin A is supposed to help heal mucosal systems. Where do we get that? In squash, vegetables that pop up this time of year. It's almost like, here you go. We're giving you what you need, at this time of year. Lots of vitamin A, which is supposed to be protective. I know a lot of people have thought about taking vitamin A supplements because of the pulmonary effects of COVID. any other foods or supplements you would think of with the mucosal barrier? Do you ever recommend like curcumin, turmeric type supplements or foods? You supplement spicing your foods with it?
Yeah, absolutely. Curcumin, yeah, so turmeric and ginger.
Oh yeah.
Even something like garlic for sure. Onions have quercetin, which we've heard now that it has some protective effect, or people are using it early on with the SARS-CoV-2 virus in hopes that helps modulate the immune system a bit. So I think those vegetables can be critical in remembering to cook with those over the holidays.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we're going to post some recipes. I think a lot of us over the holidays start thinking purely, dinners and big feasts and putting them on them. But one of my favorite ways to get, ginger in my diet is, smoothies in the morning. Great place you can put, berries, different citrus, get your vitamin C, get your manganese, get lots of antioxidants loaded up there. Another super, you mentioned superfoods. I mean, Chia Seeds, I think, is always another one of the ones that has all sorts of different, anti-inflammatory effects, antioxidants. So that's another one I love to just add to the morning smoothie, the kitchen sink smoothie, I call it, where you just dump in whatever's left over, add some jalapeno in there, get all spicy.
Well, you mentioned too the berries. I mean, it's looking for ways to get really deep red and deep purple and deep blue foods in, because they're so high in antioxidants, like in polyphenols and things that can really help detoxify during the holidays too. So that's a great tip.
Yeah, I mean, that supports so much internally. How do you teach this? As I mentioned, Tricia actually, teaches, upcoming doctors at the medical school. There's a balance when people say, well, eat lots of berries, and some people say, oh, it's got lots of sugars, or, avocados, it's got fat, I want to be careful. Again, is it more just moderation, or do you give amounts, or how do you answer that question of, because we know too much sugar, the insulin effect can lower your immune system too.
That's a great question. I usually start one with always don't have it unopposed. So if you're gonna use fruits with that are high in sugar, use a protein like a nut, certainly oils. Like when you put a protein and a fat in with your carbohydrate, then it slows down the absorption. So the spike of the sugar is a little more gradual.
Oh, nice.
And then also, I moderation again, when waking up and having just a fruit smoothie with nothing else in it would be a much bigger spike in the sugar than if like things like chia seeds and almond butter or almonds in there, or whatever, various mixed macros, I guess.
Got it. Yeah, that's another, putting some of those greens in the morning, way to get some greens in there, some parsley in a smoothie, but you're right. Okay. Yeah. Avoid the big fruit bomb first thing. Does it matter time of day? I know I've heard that debate. You should only have fruit at night. Some people say, well, I need some in the morning to get started. Does it matter?
I don't know. I think it's individual. I do know that it is potentially more spiking of the sugars if you eat it earlier in the morning. But again, I think it depends how you sleep, how you schedule out your day, and where your energy is. And I think there is some individual room for individuality there.
Yeah, I don't like to overthink it too much myself, but I was wondering if you had a more academic answer. Hey, Annalise, how much time do we need to leave for questions, by the way? What time do you want to, because I want to, we haven't even really dove into other foods. We can go into more foods here now, but what time do we need to?
Yeah, good question. Maybe we can wrap up for questions around 4:45, 4:50.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm really liking about hearing how it's very individual, depending on each person when you're eating certain foods and balancing out your body, that it's really up to that person consuming the foods and to know like what's best for them. I just think that's a really awesome take on all things health and wellness, and knowing like what your moderation is and what's best for your body. So
That's-
we just got a question from Megan. Do you want me to
Megan.
ask this now while we're on this subject? She asked if there are foods that support both brain health and our immune systems.
Yes.
Yes.
Um,
Okay, next question. Tricia, this is your, yeah, go ahead, jump in. I'll
Well,
supplement as needed.
yes, definitely. I mean, I think, you know, I've heard the phrase, your gut is your brain's best friend. I mean, everything that we eat has such an impact on our brain, our cognition, our memory, our moods. And it has a lot to do with the fact that quite a few neurotransmitters are produced around the gut. And so what we're eating, not only are they produced in and around the gut, they're produced by the microbiome itself. And there's receptors on the microbiome that respond to neurotransmitters we produce in the body. So the communication is phenomenal. And so things that we mentioned about healthy foods that are healthy for the gut are all healthy for the brain. I think particularly those omega-3s, good healthy fats can be really beneficial to the brain. We haven't talked too much about coconut oil or coconut milk, but this medium chain triglycerides can be helpful for cognition. I know. So, other thoughts, John, on foods?
Yeah, I mean, it's Megan, that's a fantastic question, and it's one we could go super deep into because, you know, some people will refer to, as we've talked before on inflammation from the gut and how that triggers inflammation in the body for autoimmune diseases. They think now for heart diseases, but also for brain health. And they've actually called, like, you know, we have type 1 diabetes, type 2. They've actually type 3 diabetes is inflammation in the brain causing different, cognitive diseases, dementia, Parkinson's. So Dr. Perlmutter, if you're interested in going deep, there's some great, Dr. Perlmutter's written a few books on one that's specific to the relationship between the gut and the brain. And he goes through all sorts of different supplements. But you can almost take everything we're saying, all the foods that are anti-inflammatory in the gut and a healthy gut, as Trish was mentioning, help protect the brain. Those neurotransmitters, again, you get into not just the microbiome, but those neurotransmitters. They've done studies where if you have a healthy gut, you're producing all the serotonin. When people have depression, they're giving them drugs to help keep the serotonin levels higher in their brain. If we get the gut healthy, you can produce more serotonin. So, there's one of the best examples I've heard about the relationship is we all know when we're nervous, let's say about an event or a test, we feel it in our gut. There's a definite relationship between the two. So, keeping a healthy gut, keeping a healthy, will keep the brain healthy. In terms of specific foods and supplements, it certainly goes into, there is some individualization in terms of how we balance neurotransmitters, in terms of how our body detoxifies. It's very important to keep toxins. People talk about, let's say, brain fog when they're not healthy, have autoimmune disease, or have like a gluten, adverse reactions. They feel it in their brain. The ways to clear that out are oftentimes in the gut, and that gets blocked off with eating processed foods and sugars. So if we heal the gut and we can produce and balance and detoxify the brain, that's really helpful. Again, the foods we talked about, things like the flavonoids and the blueberries, have been, I think, become very popular for brain health. I'm trying to think, Tricia, if you got specific foods that you recommend when it comes to brain. I know, like the supplements, the CoQ10s, and there's some other, but again, it usually has to do with balancing. If we get the base layers healthy, the body itself will balance.
Yeah, and I think about also, we talk about energy. People, we get our energy out of the mitochondria. We make energy out of the mitochondria, and things like our brain and our skeletal muscles and our heart use a lot of mitochondria. So if you can support that energy production, you can really support the brain health. And I think certainly we need nutritious food for that, and protein, but also things with B vitamins. And I think B vitamins can be really essential in brain health and accessing the energy that we can get out of all our food, all our fats, carbs, and protein.
Yeah. And so you see, especially some of the when it says, fortified cereals, breads that are fortified, these have been usually synthetic B vitamins that have been put in. These actually block that system and will reduce your body's ability to produce things like glutathione and to work through that detox system, the methylation system I was referring to. So again, healthy bees. I mean, Tricia, I know you've already mentioned the, berries. One of the things we commonly think of having bees, things like D and magnesium, especially, women seem to be lower in magnesium than men, really important for balancing hormones, which affect the brain. Vitamin D, I think we can jump into that at some point because there's been a lot of excitement with, COVID, that vitamin D has been protective. And I don't know, I mean, Tricia, you do more testing, you can talk, but almost everybody I saw, unless they were supplementing, is low in vitamin D. It just seems like it's almost, it's lacking in our diets. I don't know, even if we're outside, I've heard people even who live in sunny states, live by the beach, they're still be low unless they're supplementing. I'd love to get your take on that.
Yeah. I think, in terms of B vitamins, other things, the orangey, like sweet potatoes and those fall vegetables have vitamin B, also some legumes and beans and that kind of thing, and have can be useful, and nuts and seeds. And then
have the zinc as well, right? Also important for the immune system.
And zinc is huge for the immune system. That's awesome. If you can get oysters, you're in good shape. But we live in Utah, so it's harder to get the zinc out of our oysters. Yeah, in terms of vitamin D, I agree. I almost don't, and some people won't even test it because they'll just replace it for a while and then check out where people are, because it's so, if every time I do check it, it's on the low end. It's rare. And I think there is some seasonality to it. There's some improvement, I think, in summer and fall, and as the winter comes along, it even goes down lower. But vitamin D is hard to get in food. It's actually, I think some people might know this, but it's not really a vitamin. It's a pre-hormone. So we get it through sun, through our skin, more than we get it through anywhere else. And of course, we don't sit out and sunbathe anymore, and maybe it's, yeah. So I think supplementing with vitamin D has become very popular with the way that it's has some anti-inflammatory effects, and what we think is how it benefits this particular SARS-CoV-2 virus.
Do you recommend taking it? I've heard, taking it with vitamin K. Is that important?
Yeah, I think
the combination.
Yeah, that D3K2 supplements, I've been recommending that. It seems to help direct the vitamin D towards bone and not towards the cardiovascular system. So especially as we get older, supplementing with K2 with your vitamin D and you get K through dark leafy vegetables and that kind of thing, but you got to be pretty consistent if you're going to rely on that to move your vitamin D into your bone, I think.
Yeah, and vitamin D is usually a relatively inexpensive supplement, and like I think both of us said, it's typically when we test, we do see mostly people, if they're not supplementing, are pretty low. So
yeah, and I usually test when I see someone who is has energy intolerance or fatigue, or it has other inflammatory things going on, because it can be a general baseline boost of your whole immune system and your whole system. So I don't test everybody, but I think most people will take it because we're better. It seems like we're better off if we boost that up to a higher number than when most people are walking around with. Yeah,
it seems like we know it helps repair the gut. Again, I know there's excitement with the COVID, but again, it does. Yeah, it seems to with autoimmune. I mean, since we're talking supplements, what's your take on supplementing foods? Because as we mentioned the last time I was here, Annalise, we talked about, the food source in this country has been really overtapped. The soil is depleted. It's not, even when we eat healthy organic foods, they're lacking in the nutrients we need. Do you routinely recommend certain supplements to help the immune system, or do you kind of person to person? Or any general ones?
I always say and act food first, and then try to really get a good 7-day food journal with somebody and see what they're really eating, and then I'll look at their symptoms. But I do find that vitamin D, magnesium are so often low that I don't always test magnesium, and I often recommend it for supplementation. It's a great smooth muscle relaxer. People who are having trouble falling asleep, it can be taken in the evening and really benefit that way. It's been used over the years for restless legs. So if someone who's having trouble sleeping because of restless leg syndrome, that can be useful. But in general, I think, like you said, it's from our change in soil and the fact that, just like we are what we eat, our plants are what they are growing. Like if they don't grow in a lot of good bacteria and vitamins, and they don't have the same amount as our grandparents had when they were eating the same food. So magnesium, vitamin D.
On the magnesium for 1 second, just as we're talking stress and holidays, we all, today we're going to talk about food, but when you get stressed, when you don't sleep, if you're stressed, we know it lowers your immune system. And one way to get magnesium is an Epsom salt bath. End of the day, take a nice warm bath with Epsom salts, detoxes the body. Your body absorbs magnesium. That's why our bodies love swimming in the ocean, absorbs all these great minerals. But sometimes we got, different, we feel like, it's hard to get rid of stress, but we can take a few minutes and just show some gratitude, take a walk, take a bath. And so that's one way you can get some magnesium.
Oh, I love that advice. That's great. Yeah. That's awesome. That's a great holiday. That might be the best holiday tip we've got today.
Red wine and Epsom salt bath.
Yes.
The right dose of red wine and some Epsom salt bath.
Get in trouble here. Vitamin C. We've bounced. Obviously we've talked about that with this, in peppers and in lots of different vegetables, fruits. The importance of that for repair of the everything from the mucosal system, your skin repair, to antioxidants and fighting viruses. Zinc. I know there's been a lot of. Is that one that you commonly? I know people who use it sometimes, like zinc lozenges, when they start to feel sick. But that's another one that I think important for T cells and protection.
Yeah, all the way through the body, from the mucosal layer. All the way through the immune systems. So, and often we are, most people are zinc deficient. There's a simple little test you can put, and I haven't done it in a long time, and I don't have it in clinic. Maybe I should have it. Is you put it in your mouth, and if you taste something bitter, it means you have plenty of zinc. And if you can't taste anything, then you need supplementation. It's sort of
wait, what do you put in your mouth?
Like a little test strip, and it has a super bitter taste if you have enough zinc in your system. Have you ever used that? I
remember the taste of it, but I'm not sure what it was. I've never done it. So if I've heard taste it,
I forgot it. You just brought it up. So, yeah. And you mentioned vitamin A, foods full of vitamin A, and I try to think about those lists of foods to use, but then, I think it's totally reasonable to have sort of a list of supplements for going through into the holiday season, the stress and the cold and flu season and all of that. So,
yeah. Do you have any recommendations on how to prepare vegetables that may have like higher vitamin contents? To get the most out of what you're eating, basically? That's
a good question. I noticed during the conversation John had with Reagan that you guys talked about the fact that you lightly steam some cruciferous vegetables and you get more zinc out of them. And I thought that was a great tip. Mm. And I think my approach is you get a little bit, especially those tougher vegetables, you do break down some of the fiber and access some of the vitamin nutrients by lightly cooking. You can, if you over cook them and they lose all their color, you've gone too far. Turn back, no, start again. You get kind of different benefits. It's not my approach is you don't always have to cook every broccoli. You can dip it. You can have it raw. You can do some things raw, but there are benefits for lightly cooking vegetables in general from different access.
I like that. Oops, sorry. I was just saying I like to mix it up, the raw and the cooked. Yeah. Both. Big sources of A, I think you mentioned, again, it's a great holiday season where, things like the yams, sweet potatoes, the squash, leafy greens. And I know you've got some great recipes, and I'll share some we can put on. Mushrooms, another one. I know, there's some people that will do concentrated mushrooms, but the cordyceps, there's lots of different mushrooms that have been touted as having high immune systems. Is that one, Tricia, you recommend, or do you tell people, again, moderation with the fungus element?
Yeah, no, if people are tolerating the mushrooms, I think it's a great idea. I think
I'm a fan.
I recommend mushrooms. And there's one recipe that I put in a mushroom gravy, I think was one of the recipes. I tried to get a couple holiday recipes, and then I did kind of also lean towards some veggie curries, because I think throwing turmeric with vegetables is such a great combination for anti-inflammatory. And
Lots
I
of
just
garlic.
say, in garlic, yeah, if you can put turmeric next to your in your kitchen and put a tablespoon or two in each dish that you want it in, then it's a habit. Over time, it's super helpful.
Yeah, and
if I started to feel sick, I would chop up like 2 or 3 cloves of garlic with olive oil and just swallow it before I went to work. And I think I was like burping up garlic. I don't know if it just kept the patients further away so they didn't get sick, or if it made me better, but made me think I was fighting something. Okay, I know we're getting to the question period. Here's a question for you, Trish. I've seen studies, here we are talking about eating, but one way I've seen to reset the immune system is actually fasting. I don't know how much you've gotten into that or studied it. I mean, there are some studies that show 3 days of fasting. It doesn't have to be like not eating, but low calorie intake for 3 days can apparently help reset the immune system. Do you know anything about that?
I don't have a lot of depth in fasting. I worked with a couple people on 12-hour fast on a regular basis, and that kind of falls into my mind of more of the habit thing, how you schedule
Right.
your day, and over time I found incredible anecdotal benefit for people doing that. But I don't have longer fast data off the top of my head, really.
Just curious, because that's been an interesting one where I know there have been some studies for resetting stem cells in your body to get them to kind of become, again, some anecdotal. There have been some studies, but I'm not that well versed. Annalise, I don't know if you want us to talk, recipe. I know we're getting to if you want questions tossed out, or different things, or Tricia, where you'd like anything else you'd like to go with, any other foods or pearls or things you had to talk about?
I would say one thing.
I think I'm frozen. I
Back
don't know if I'm frozen.
to the microbiome is that there's this great study about 6 years ago in Nature that showed that they checked the microbiome every day. They put one group for 5 days on a vegetable only diet, and the other group on a meat or animal protein only diet, and then they swapped. So you got both, but and they were able to check the microbiome every day. And one thing they found was that every 24 hours, the microbiome had already changed. And I've read that microbiome can turn over a generation in 20 minutes, and in a day it can turn over 50 generations so this is such an adaptive part of who we are. We're carrying around this ecosystem that can change, and we can have and that's what I think that gives the power of this whole nutrition first, and not that moderate exercise and sleep, that all influences the microbiome as well, but we turn over our cells in our GI tract every 5 or 8 days or something. So it is such a malleable part of who we are, and it's such an essential part of our immune system and our health, that don't get frustrated if over the holidays you have some celebratory days and you feel like you just blew the advice we've just given, because your microbiome's forgiving. It will kick back in and adapt to what you're doing and how you're feeding it. So if it's an inspiration at all, that you can change this in a pretty rapid period of time and have influence on your health in a pretty rapid period of time.
That's incredible. I never knew that.
Yeah, it would take us back to like the pyramids or something if in a day, if we went to our, if we went back 50 generations, I don't know where it would take us, but it would be
We did have a question come in. The question was, I have COVID lingering symptoms and I've had months of symptoms relapses. Over that time, I took many supplements containing the nutrients you recommend. I still suffered months in pain of exhaustion. Do whole foods substantially outperform supplements?
I would say yes. In general, whole foods outperform supplements, and we don't always know why, but there's a synergy that happens with a whole food that once we remove a nutrient, a mineral, anything, and try to repackage it, it's not in its whole form in a sense that it doesn't have, and that's why I think some supplement companies really promote multiple supplements at the same time, trying to get that synergy back. But really, if you can eat it in the whole food, that is optimal. I know patients I have with sort of the post-COVID symptoms that keep lingering have experimented with various things, and I don't know if this caller has done so, but things like high histamine foods trigger or other things, and have gone through sort of an elimination process and a reintroduction process. And I have one patient who said, please tell everybody who asks this kind of question that arugula is the secret weapon. So if you haven't tried arugula, give it a go.
I would just add, because we're still in such a gray area of why certain people respond certain ways to COVID, why some people have, whether it's a cytokine reaction, have lingering effects. And I don't know, Tricia, with your clinic, I know previously when I was working in a more of a functional medicine clinic, the importance sometimes of testing each person, because how they actually deal with different supplements, why they might have, like you said, histamine reactions, how you might deal with methylation. You might be directed towards certain foods, and other foods that might normally be super healthy might be ones you need to avoid to get things back in balance, and to maybe find out, where the inflammation is in your body there. And again, Tricia, with your clinic, I'm not sure where you are with, recommending, testing in certain areas, or, because I think what we're seeing is, when one person's affected more than another, we don't understand why. It might be important to figure out what that person, needs to balance out specifically. So that might be cases where we find out, we don't yet know why people are responding.
I would agree. And I think that even without COVID, that's a true statement, John. I think there are times when you can trial and error for all day long, but it gets old and it's not getting to the answer. And I think you can get yourself.
Very frustrating for patients.
What's that?
And very frustrating for patients. We're like, hey, I'm doing all these healthy things, I'm getting worse. And sometimes,
right.
It's because it's not the answer.
Right. And so, the approach I usually take is there are things that your body's deficient in needs in order to optimize its health. And there are obstacles to health that, and they're not always the same in every person. So sometimes testing deficiencies or toxic exposures or inflammatory markers can help direct us and fine tune. And I certainly find that with this post-COVID scenario, that it's even more important than ever.
Yeah, and I'll just go one again. We can talk about the important. If you can get healthy foods that have the nutrients, it's wonderful. It doesn't always mean your body absorbs it. Again, it has to go through that membrane. So the importance of having a healthy gut, healthy bacteria, having a healthy membrane. Otherwise your body doesn't absorb those foods. You might have enough acid in your stomach to help break the proteins down in the foods, get the minerals out that you need. And again, sometimes testing can help with that. There are some general, things we've recommended and can certainly dive deeper into, or get in touch with Tricia at her clinic. But sometimes there are cases where, testing your gut itself makes sense, because you can see people again doing, I'm eating all the right foods, I'm eating every superfood, I'm exercising, and everything's going wrong. Sometimes you got to look foundationally. Okay, wait, why aren't you absorbing the nutrients from, things like that? So.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I just shared Dr. Petzold's clinic in the chat box. So you can visit pinnaclehealthslc.com to book an appointment. You have such a wealth of knowledge, and this has been really great. I will also share all of these recipes with everyone after this webinar is over. So along with the link that I just sent in the chat box as well.
Okay.
We have a few more minutes, so if anyone has any last minute questions or
some favorites of mine. Rich Roll, he's a plant-based, like, unbelievable athlete. He's got an amazing, one of the best podcasts out there where you can listen to him talk to experts who are unbelievable when it comes to nutrition, health. But he's got some great recipes for smoothies, vegetables, all plant-based, super healthy, immune boosting recipes in here. He's this guy that does, back to back Ironmans, and it was all based once he started changing his diet. I love Ottolenghi. This is one of his newer books, Simple, because he makes some really complicated recipes, but lots of vegetable and meat dishes, but simple, nutritious, real foods. Plant Paradox, another one, lots of gut healing with the Plant Paradox. Dr. Gundry's pretty well known, but he's got a cookbook that actually has recipes all with anti-inflammatory, foods that are not inflammatory. I shouldn't say they're anti-inflammatory, but don't trigger inflammation. People talk about the time to cook. I do love, Jamie Oliver's got a lot of great stuff, but Meals in Minutes, he actually has these recipes that are organized for an entire meal. Just, it's rather than saying, here's you cook this dish, how to do it. It's start this, then do this, chop these vegetables while you put the water on for the, he takes you through some just really fun meals. This is for the holiday.
I like all the tags, John. I like you've marked many pages in that last
I love to cook. And I think I like to eat, but some of the best chocolate chip cookies in here. There's Sweet Laurel. These are all whole food, grain-free desserts, basically with this like almond flour, a little bit of coconut oil, and it's just great recipes that for the holidays are healthy. Martha Stewart, Meatless, another easy one. Just lots of great vegetable dishes that are easy and tasty. And I'm going to plug my book one more time because for December, this is my recent book that's out on Amazon. In December, I'm giving to the food banks. So anybody wants to, if there's a good time to buy gifts, if you want to consider this, it's on Amazon. Playing Doctor, my story of going through medical school, part 1. And again, I'm going to use it. All profits will go to the food bank this month.
I can recommend that.
That's my book sharing for the day.
I can recommend that last book. I have started it and I am laughing loudly reading it. So thank you, John. This is great. It's really fun to read this book.
Thank you so much. Any other questions, Annalise, that we can?
We haven't had any more questions come up. I just shared some of those links to the books in the chat box.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for allowing us to come on and talk. And Tricia, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come and share all your knowledge with all of us today. Got a lot of good take homes for myself too.
Well, likewise, John. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Annalise, thanks for having me participate with Eats Park City. It's my honor truly to be here.
It's such an honor to have you both on here. Thank you for sharing everything that you shared today. And I wish you both the best this holiday season and hope everyone stays healthy and safe. So
yeah, and I hope we can get back together when we can all be together and cook, maybe do one of these in live form and cook together or something.
That would be fun. We're going to look forward to that.
Yeah.
Of our red wine while we cook.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Annalise.
All right. Well, thank you both. Thanks everyone for attending, and wishing you all the best.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.